Hi everybody. In the previous video, we've put our project online on a virtual private server. In today's video, we will add a post functionality for registered users. We create a post model to store messages of users with pictures, links, and information, with the option to be visible only to their followers, and a model for categories and one for countries. We create an HTML post form and integrate our categories and countries as drop-down lists. We will also do a size and format verification of the pictures with JavaScript. We create a task to capture, validate, and store the post in the database. We amend our homepage task to include a list of all public posts and show how to display them on the homepage. Note that we will only show a snippet of the posts. In our next video, we will create the detail page of the post and start adding the comment, reply, like, and pin functionalities. Lastly, we will test our post task, add some lines of codes in our settings file, and structurize the project by creating a blog app and adding template folders and HTML files. We have our editor and command prompt open. We cd into our P1 folder and start the virtual environment. We will download and install two tools in our virtual environment with the pip install command. The first one is Django Cleanup. The second one is Django Embed Video. We will learn more about these tools in a moment. Done. Now we cd into our project folder, where we will create a new app called blog in our project with the command python manage.py, start app, blog. In the editor on the background, you see the app folder blog being created by Django. Now let's add our app and tools to our settings.py file. Note: we also decoupled in our offline project. In our installed apps, we first add the blog app. Next, a tool that is included in Django, Humanize, a very handy tool that lets you put dates and time in many formats in your templates. Next is Django Cleanup. This removes all submitted media content from the database whenever a user deletes it. It saves us work. And our Embed Video tool, which allows streaming YouTube videos. Later we will do a change to our media settings at the bottom of the file. Now to our URLs file, where we include the blog URLs. And saving our work. We're going to add some code in our project. Hold on. In our newly created blog app, we have added the urls.py file, where we import the path tool and the views from within our blog app. Note: we moved our homepage URL to our blog URLs as it makes more sense to us. As a reminder, there is no need to create separate apps. This is for structurizing purpose only. Same for our homepage task, we moved it to our blog views file. There is no need for that, it's just to keep the logic. We will learn about all the tools we import later in this video. Let's go to the models file and check in detail what we added. First, our models template. Next, our settings file, as we need access to the user account model. And the pre-save tool, we'll see in a moment what it does. Same for Slugify. And a tool that gives us a current date and time. And our Embed Video tool. The first model we create is for categories. We can enter a list manually in our admin console and use it in our post submit form in a drop-down select field. It has a name and rank field and returns the name if not otherwise specified. The same we did for countries. We can add a list of countries in the admin console and use it wherever and however we want on the front end. Next, our post model, which will store the input submitted by registered users. The name, free to choose. Our first field is a special field, the foreign key. In this model, it is linked to our user model. A foreign key field is a one-to-many field. In this model, meaning that a post can have only one author, aka user, but the author can have many posts. And whenever the author, aka user, deletes his or her account, the related objects, aka posts, of this model will also be deleted. Next, we have some information fields for the post. Check the data types used. Here are embed video field. And some image fields for pictures, which we set to upload in our media folder. And now, too many fields. The first for hearts, when users like a post. Remember, many means a post can be liked by many users, and users can like many posts in return. With the field name, we can obtain a list of the users liking the post, and with the related name, we can see all posts a user likes. The pins field is basically a copy of the hearts just with other naming, so we can add different functionalities to the post. You could easily add dislikes in the exact same way. The public boolean field will help us making the post private upon request. And with a task, we will then make it visible only to followers of the author. Another boolean field to confirm a delete upon request. The last field is another special one, the slug field. Basically, it will be the URL address, after the domain name, for the post. As the address needs to be unique for each post, we will use Slugify to try to accomplish that. We'll see in a moment. We return the username of the author if not otherwise specified. And we have two tasks to show the totals of our many fields. Now on to our Slugify task, which is outside our model. We gave it a name, free to choose. Mind the arguments between the brackets. Now we will use our pre-save tool to connect our Slugify task with our model. As it's a pre-save function, before it saves the post, it will check if the slug is empty. If empty, we will first create a variable, which we name t. In this variable, we will store a chosen format of the date and time of the request. Then we can assign a value to the slug field. We choose the category field as this will always be a required field when submitting the form. / Adding our variable. / Adding the username. Important note. At the end of the video, we will add seconds to the t variable. We just realize we left too much room for the user to submit a duplicate post if only set to minutes, which would result in an error. The slug needs to be unique. Saving our work. We are ready with our models. We now have to do the migrations. First, our Python manage.py make migrations. And then the Python manage.py migrate. No errors detected. Let's check if our project still works in the browser. Starting the development server. Adding our development server's address in the browser's address bar. And it still works. We have changed the CSS and will keep changing it until it's acceptable to look at. If anybody wants to help, reach out. As we have cleaned up the homepage, there is nothing else than the link to the sign-in page. Before we continue, we'd like to address a mistake we made off screen. At a certain point we deleted our blog app without first deleting the models and migrating those deletes. This created a memory in the database of the old models, which caused problems when creating the blog and the models again. Problems we were not able to fix without drastic measures. We will show you what we did. First, we deleted the database SQLite file. And then the files in the migration folders of both the blog and accounts app. Note that we are not touching any of the init.py files. They have to remain in the folders. Next step is doing the migrations. This will create a fresh SQLite database file with our models. All migrations successfully redone. Now we create the Django superuser again with the create superuser command. Entering credentials. Done. Let's start our development server, check if all is still working, and create our test user. Works fine. Going to the sign up page. Entering credentials. Test user signed up, we get our welcome message. And we are back on track. A fix you can afford during development but not production. As a reminder, always do the migrations first after a model is added, changed, or deleted. Let's continue working on the project now. First, we added structure in our templates folder. We have added files and many are numbered. We like using numbering as it gives us control of the sort order of the files. As a reminder, there is no need to do this. You could put all HTML files directly in the templates folder or create as many subfolders you like and choose whatever naming works for you, as long as you link it correctly in the returns in your tasks. Let's add a button to the base template of our homepage that will lead to the submit form. We activate the code. It's an ahref link. We gave it a class. And it's linked to the post URL. Inside a font awesome icon. We're now going to add this URL in the URLs file in our blog app. Removing the hash to activate the code. Whenever the user requests the post URL, by clicking the button or by typing it directly in the web browser's address bar, the post page task in the views file will be executed. We also added a name for the URL, which will be used in the post forms action tag and for redirects in our tasks. Saving our work. We will check the task in a moment. First, we will have a look to our submit form. Its base template is standard. We have our CSS links. We have the links to our fonts, Font Awesome and Bootstrap. And also a link to jQuery for some JavaScript. Our Django content block tags. We have placed no buttons on the base template. Onto the post page, which contains the submit form. To make more sense of its code, we're first going to look at it in the browser. After refreshing, we see the button. When clicking the button, we go to the post page where we see the submit form. On top of the page, we have our logo, which is linked to the home page. Next are two select fields that will allow users to choose a category and a country. We will enter these categories and countries in the admin console in some moments. Next, an input field for the city and one for a title. And an input field for the message. Next is the input field for the YouTube link. It will allow streaming the video on the website. And a field to link a website. Next are two fields, wrapped in a button, to upload pictures. We will validate the size and format of the pictures in our task. But we will also validate them with JavaScript to show feedback before the form is submitted. The maximum size is set to 3 MB. So if we select a picture with a bigger size, we get a message. Now, let's upload an invalid file type. And we also get our message. The buttons also get a red color to indicate there is an invalid upload. When we upload two valid pictures, the messages disappear and the buttons change color. The next button is to make the post private. As this function only works with JavaScript, we will later add a button to the post to allow making it private with a task. The last button is the submit button, which is only visible to signed-in users. Let's see the code used for this form. First, making it an extension of the base template. Importing the static tag. And the open content block tag. The whole page is wrapped in a div. First section is our logo button, which is linked to the home page. Next is a Django tag that will verify if the user is authenticated, aka signed in. If so, it will show a link to the user's own profile page. We will add the user profile page in next video. Next is the section for displaying the returned messages from our task. We are using the same JavaScript as in our sign up sign in page to make the messages disappear after some seconds. We iterate over the messages list, and when a message is found, it is displayed using the Django double accolade output tag. Next is our submit form. We already know this from our sign-up functionality. It has a post method, and the action is linked to the name of our post URL. As we are submitting pictures, we need to add the HTML ink type attribute to the form. This is a standard. Next is our CSRF token Django tag, a requirement to submit data. The next section is for the select fields to show and choose a category and country. Note the select HTML tag. It's a text type field. And we gave it a name to capture the input in our task. The field is set as required. We give the selection list a header by using the HTML option tag. And now we can iterate over the category list, which we will add to a context box in our task. Every category found will be added to the select list by using the option tag. We will show the category name using the Django output tag. We do the same for the country select list. With the difference that this field is not set as requirement, it's optional. The list is given a header and with an iteration over the country list, which we will add to a context box in the task, we add the countries to the list by using options. We show the country name by using the Django output tag. Next section are the input fields where users can enter a city, title, a message and links. We gave them names to capture their input in our task. All fields are optional besides the message field, which is set as required. Note all settings we gave them. A placeholder. A maximum length to do already a check before submitting the form. And autocomplete off so that the placeholders are reset upon refresh of the page. The next section is to display the pictures, the JavaScript messages, and all the buttons. First, two img tags that will show the uploaded pictures by using JavaScript. If the user has no JavaScript enabled, it will show the file names. Next, two divs to show the upload errors with JavaScript. If the user has no JavaScript enabled, the errors will not be displayed. Next are all our buttons. The two upload buttons are actually input fields wrapped with labels and CSS to make them appear as buttons. If for any reason the CSS fails and the user has no JavaScript enabled, the standard HTML upload fields will do the job. Both fields have a name to capture the input in our task. Next is our input field to make the post private or public. It's also wrapped in a label with CSS to make it appear as a button. And a name to capture the input in the task. The field is set as hidden and works only with JavaScript. If the user has no JavaScript enabled, the field will always have the standard value which is set as public. Lastly, we have our submit button. We again use the Django tag that checks if the user is authenticated aka signed in. If so, the user will see a submit button. If not, the user will only see an icon wrapped in CSS to make it appear as a button. Our form is done. Closing all tags. At the bottom, we have the div that displays a message if the post is selected as private. We'll now check our JavaScripts. As this is a Django tutorial, we're not going into detail of the scripts. They will be posted on the website. The script for our Django messages is already explained in a previous video. The next script is to show the uploaded pictures in the img fields. The next script verifies the size and format of the pictures. First, we call all involved fields by using their IDs and store them in variables. We check the formats of the pictures. If they don't meet the requirements, we add classes and messages to the variables. Then we check their size. If not meeting the requirements, we again add classes and messages to the variables. The last script is to change the value of the public post to private and to show the message. The last line of code on the page is the Django content block closing tag. Our post HTML page is done. We can now create our task in our views that will capture and store the user's input in our post models or show this page if no post method was detected. We already added the task as preparation and will go over it in detail. The tools we imported are render, redirect, and get object or show 404. Some tools to show and render pages. The login required tool, which can be used to make tasks available only for logged-in users. And importing all our models. Our Django messages context box. The mark safe tool. And some tools from Pillow, which we will use to verify the size and format of the pictures. Now on to our post task. The name is free to choose. It will be executed every time a user requests aka visits the URL or submits the post. First, we define a context box and request the user, which will be stored in a variable called myself. Next, we check if a post method was detected. If not, we will execute the else statement. Here we will collect all objects from the category model and store them in a variable. We do the same for countries. We collect all objects from the country model and store them in a variable. Next, we store the variables in a context box. Namings can be freely chosen. We like to use recognizable namings. We also put the variable myself in a context box. Then we return the request by rendering the post HTML page while including the context boxes. Now let's go to the code used in case a post method was detected. Normally a non-signed-in user will not see the submit button in the form. But in case that fails, we are doing an extra check in our task. If a post method is detected and the user is not authenticated, we will add a message to the Django context box and redirect to this task. As that will not trigger a post method, the else statement will be executed, showing the post HTML page including all context boxes and the Django message. If the user is signed in, the next code will be executed. To collect pictures we use another approach, compared to collecting characters input. We still have to use the field names of the form to get the pictures, but we use a request.files.get command, as pictures are files. And we have to add the or none statement, in case no files were submitted. We store the results in variables. Now we will do some tests on the variables. Note that we found this snippet of code on the internet. This can probably be done on many ways. Let's see what is done here. First, we will check if the first variable contains a file aka picture or not. In case it does not contain a file, while the first picture is required, we will execute the else statement, which is adding a message to the Django message box and redirect to this task. As the redirect does not trigger a post method, the post page will be rendered including the context boxes and Django message. In case the statement is true and a file was submitted, we will do a try and except statement in combination with using Pillow functionality. We try to open the file with image from Pillow. As Pillow contains a list of valid file extension for pictures, this serves as a validation test of the format. In case image can open the file, we will then do a test on the file size, which we set as 3 MB aka 3 million bytes. If the file exceeds the limit, we will add a message to the Django message box and redirect to this task, which will eventually render the post page with our message. In case image cannot open the file because of an invalid format, the except statement will be executed. Note the Pillow unidentified image error statement we added to the except. So in case the file is from a wrong format, we will add a message to the Django message box and redirect to this task, which will eventually render the post page with our Django message included. This process will be repeated until a picture is submitted that meets all requirements. Only then, the task will continue, which is checking the second picture. As the second picture is not required, we do not have an else statement in case no file is submitted and the variable is none. If the variable is not none and a file was submitted, we will again execute the try and accept statement. We try to open the file with image from pillow. If the file can be opened, we will check the size. If the size exceeds the limits, we add a Django message to our redirect. In case the file cannot be opened, we will execute the accept statement, which is again adding a Django message to the redirect. This process will be repeated until a second picture is submitted that meets all requirements, or if no second picture is submitted. Only then the task will continue, which is collecting all character inputs of the user by calling their input field names with a request.post and storing them in variables. In case the category contains the standard list header, we will redirect to the post page with a Django message as the category is a required field. Because the title is not a required field, we will only do a check on the variable in case it's not empty. We do this with variable not equal to empty quotations. In case it's not empty, we will check the minimum and maximum length. If the input does not meet the requirements, we redirect to the post page with a Django message included. The body is a required field, so we immediately check the length, which implies also that the variable is not empty. In case it's empty or it does not meet requirements, we redirect to the post page with a Django message included. For the city and link variables, we implement the same check as for the title. If they are not empty, we check the length and redirect to the post page with a Django message, in case they don't meet the requirements. Note the and/or tags used in the statements. When all fields meet requirements, the task continues, which is collecting the value of our button to mark the post as public or private. Remember, when the user has no JavaScript enabled, the value will always be public. In case the value is public, we will first check if only the required picture is submitted without a second one. If that is the case, we can create our post and save all our variables in our post model in their corresponding fields. At the top of the task, we requested and stored the user in the variable myself, which is now stored in the author field, storing the picture, and storing all other inputs even if they were blank. We have set the model fields as blank allowed, so that's no problem. When we show the details of the post, we will simply exclude blank fields. In case 2 pictures were submitted, we will basically do the same, except we are now also storing the second picture. Remember that the public Boolean field of our model is set as true, so we don't have to change it in both scenarios. If the creation of the object was successful, we redirect to the home page with a success message included. Later, when we create the user profile page, we will change the redirect to this page. In case the post is not marked as public, we will execute the else statement, which implies the post is marked as private. We again do a check on the pictures to see how many were submitted and store all values. But this time we set the public Boolean field to false, which marks the object aka post as private. When the post was successfully created, we redirect to the home page with a success message included. Our task is ready. We will now add our models to the admin.py file so that we can add categories and countries in the admin console and start testing the task by submitting posts. We have opened the admin console on the left and our admin file on the right. We already know how this works from a previous video. We import the admin tool and our models, customizing the fields we want to see from our models, and lastly register the models and their customized classes. Saving our work and refreshing the admin console. Our models have been added. Let's create some categories. Without the customized class, we would only see the self field of our model, which is the name of the category, but with the class we can see and edit also the rank. Now doing the same for countries. Adding them and enter their name and rank. As you can see, The Django admin console makes entering static data very easy. Done. We will log out with our super user and test the post task with the test user. But first checking if we can see our categories and countries. Looks good. The objects are nicely displayed by the iteration over the lists in the post HTML page. When adding more items, they can be sorted per rank in the task. We're now going to log in with the T1 test user. Entering the credentials. We're signed in and going back to the post page. As the user is now authenticated, we can see the button next to our logo, which is linked to the user profile page. And at the bottom, we see the button to submit the form. Our first submit will be without selecting the required category. This set the value of the input field to the word category, which is not allowed in our task. Adding a valid message and the first picture, both required to pass their tests. And submitting. Works. We get our message. The country cannot be tested, our task will capture and store, or the selected country or the standard list header, both are valid inputs. In the next video, we will show how we exclude showing the country field when its value is recognized as standard. On to the city to test the minimum length. Making sure we select a category and add a valid message and first picture, so they can pass their tests. Submitting the post. Works. We get our message. As we've set the maximum length of the field in our HTML tag, we're not testing it in our task. Also, as the title and links are tested in the same way as the city, we're not testing them in this video, but everything works. Testing the minimum length of the required message field. Adding a category and valid picture. Works. We get our message. Moving on to the pictures. Adding an oversized one. Making sure we selected a category and added a message. Submit. Works. We get our message. Trying to submit an invalid file format with a category and message. Submit. Works. We get our message. Now trying to submit a post without the required picture. Submit. Works. We get our message. Our validations work. We will now submit a valid public and private post. Amend our homepage task and display the public posts on the homepage. But first, we need to add a snippet of code to the settings and URL file in the main folder. We need to tell Django where to find the root of the media folder and its content on the machine. In short, the URL of the media is where the user will see it in their browsers. The root and the directory is where the URL will find the actual content on the machine. In our main URLs file, we need to import the settings file and the static tool as we will need both in our added snippet. Note that this snippet is only needed in development. It starts with a statement to check if the debug is set as true. If a statement does not contain operators, it simply checks if the statement is true. As the debug is set as true, the statement is therefore true. It will then join the URL patterns with the media URL and root. If you find these media URL, root, and directory settings confusing, so do we. We tried all sort of combinations until it worked, and that's it. Let's submit our posts. Entering all fields and a valid picture for a public post. And we have successfully submitted our post. Now we submit a private post. We will update the YouTube links in the admin console as we overlooked to add actual video links. In this post, we're also testing the second picture. And by pushing the followers button, the JavaScript should change the HTML field value to private, which will then set the post public Boolean field to false in the task. And we have successfully submitted our post. Now we're going to change our homepage task so that it returns a context box with all public posts. We define a variable in which we will store all objects from the post model that are set to public true using the filter. And we use the order by function to rank them by creation date. This last add-on is to limit the number of first found results to be stored. In a next video, we will learn about splitting and showing the results in pages. We store the variable in a context box, keeping consistent naming. And we return the homepage request, aka visit, with a render of the home HTML page with the context box included. Let's check our homepage. Activating our snippet of code by closing the information line. At the top of the page, we included the humanize tag to change the display format of times and dates. We don't need it yet, but we include it standard in most of our pages. First, we check if the context box has results stored in it. If the statement is false, we execute the else statement, informing the user that there are no posts. If the statement is true and there are results, we will iterate over the context box and store each result in a variable we named post. Now we will do things slightly different compared to the way we showed the results in a previous video. Here we are using a Django tag to include a separate HTML page. By transferring the variable in this way, we will be able to work with the results of the iteration on that separate page. There is no need to work with includes, you can show all results directly on this page. But when more things are being added on the homepage later on, the include function makes the project more organized and structured. Closing tag for the iteration. Let's check this separate page, mind folders and namings. Although the snippet name is freely chosen, it is fitting. This page will act as a small card, visible on the homepage, for each post found, including some of its fields. The whole card is wrapped in an ahref link. When users click the card, they will go to the detail page of the post located on the unique URL of its slug, created by the Slugify task. This page will include the comment, reply, like and pin functionalities and all non-blank fields of the post. We still need to create all of this, so the link is left blank, a diff for design purpose. The first field we want to show of the post is its picture. We do this by adding .url, standard to show media content of an object. It's put in the Django double accolade output tag, which is the source of the img tag. We can access the field because it's passed in the include tag. Two diffs for design and layout purpose. Next we do a check on the total hearts, aka likes, received. In our model, we created a function to count the totals of our many-to-many fields. Another way is to add the count function to the field in the template. Depending on the outcome, a different icon is shown. Later, we will also add the number of likes. Closing our check statement. Next, we check the category of the post. We did not have to do that, we could simply output the post.category. But it will come in handy later on when we want to add different icons to the categories. Closing all tags. And saving our work. We can now refresh the homepage and see the results. As expected, we see only one post, the public one. In the card, we see its picture, category, and desired icon. A click on the card refreshes the page as we left the link blank. Everything works as expected. Mind the pictures added in the media folder during the submits of the posts. When users submit pictures with the same name, Django will add a random string of characters to their name to keep them unique. When users delete posts, Django Cleanup will delete the pictures out of the folder and database. We will see both functions in action soon. During reviewing the video, we saw some things that could be improved, so we made some changes. Let's see quickly what we did. In our post model, we renamed the hearts field to likes and added an extra many-to-many field called dislikes. We gave it a related name and set blank allowed. We changed the name of the total counts function and its field. and added a total dislikes count function. And here you see we added the seconds to our variable in our pre-save slugify function. We migrated the changes and encountered no issues. In our task, we also made some changes. As we stored the user that visits the URL or submits the post in the variable myself in the first indentation and on top of the task, we can use it wherever it's needed in the task. So here we can now use myself is authenticated. Also, when creating and storing the objects, we don't have to do the pictures checks, so we deleted them, which simplifies the code. As the picture fields in our model are set to blank allowed, we can simply store both pictures even if the second is blank. As mentioned, we will show later on how to omit blank fields when displaying an object in our HTML pages. In our post page, we did the following change. As we passed the request.user as the variable myself in a context box in our task, we can now use it everywhere in our template. Lastly, in our snippet, we had to change the field name hearts to likes as per our model. Done. Thanks for tuning in. And we hope to see you in the next video.